Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features the Uncanny X-Men number 350, cover dated December 1997. So this is the 350th issue spectacular. There's 36 pages of story and art in this, and there's a gatefold cover, triple gatefold cover with this prismatic foil. And I think it's pretty cool. This is one of the last enhanced covers from the 90s. After this, it seemed like the enhanced covers went away for a while. Part of that was probably down to falling sales, the bottom falling out of the collector's market, and also the increasing cost of comics in the time period, and the fact that Marvel indeed was bankrupt in 1997. But this is a pretty good one. Again, I'll move it around here. You can see that we've got Gambit's glowing eyes there, and I think it's pretty effective. And like I said, this is a triple gatefold cover by Joe Madureira, inked by Tim Townsend, and I think the colors are by Steve Buccellato there. And you can see now on screen two of the pages of the triple gatefold. So we've got the Marauders here. This is what Gambit's greatest secret is, that will be revealed, that he had a hand in gathering together and recruiting the Marauders for Mr. Sinister. So yeah, you can see again the prismatic foil carries over to this cover as well. You can see Sabretooth's mane there is enhanced, his claws, his teeth. Yeah, and then there is a back cover as well, and we get that here, and that features the X-Men. We've got Rogue there in the corner. I do like the enhancements on her green eyes as well. That looks pretty cool. And we've got Maggot, we've got Joseph, of course, and there's going to be something of a revelation concerning Joseph in this issue as well. And here's our creator credits: Stephen T. Seagle, credited as writer, but that's not the full story. We'll get into that in a moment. Joe Madureira on pencils inside, but also Andy Smith doing some pages. I'll point out his pages, and Tim Townsend on inks with a couple of other helpers as well. Now, I think this is a really nice triple gatefold cover. Joe Madureira going out on a high, because this is his final issue of Uncanny X-Men, and indeed he's moving from Marvel over to Image to do some work there and have his own creator-owned comic. What's it called again? I'm trying to remember. The Battle Chasers? Battle Chasers, that's it, exactly. I did get the first issue of that, but not too many after that, because the story wasn't my cup of tea, I'll put it that way. So we get a nice splash image here of Gambit, and somehow or other he is in his old an original costume that goes back to his first appearance in Uncanny X-Men 266 and 67. So wherever did that come from? In Antarctica. We've got the title of the story, Trial and Errors, and here's our creative credits. Steve Seagle on script. Now notice that script, because in actual fact, even though he's not credited here, the plot is by Scott Lobdell. So Lobdell was working up to this revelation for a long time, planned this anniversary issue, but quit Marvel. And I've done some investigating in terms of why he quit Marvel, and there's no real information out there. So it's a little bit of a mystery. But as I said in my review video for Adjectiveless X-Men 69, my sense is that Lobdell was burnt out at Marvel, and probably some editorial interference that he couldn't handle anymore, because one of the editorial dictates becomes clear at the very end of this issue, and it concerns Joseph. So I'll hold it in reserve. Some of you may have forgotten the contents of this issue. I know I pretty much had before I opened it up in advance of making this review commentary on it. So we won't spoil the ending of this one. But we all know what's coming here in respect of Gambit and what his big secret is. And so Steve Seagle includes third-person narration throughout this issue, and it opens this way: what is it that pulls a man in many directions all at once, but which at the same time also holds a man together? So that's a very zen kind of question, isn't it, to open the issue? We see here we've got a signature by Joe Madureira, Tim Townsend, and Steve Buccellato. Do you know why that is? Can you guess? Because this is an alternative cover for the issue. So if we had only gotten a one-page cover, this would have been it. That's why Gambit is in his original costume. The rest of the creative team, we can see here there's a credit for Andy Smith also on pencils, credits for Vince Russell and Dan Panosian on inks. They're inking over the Andy Smith portions of the pages, Tim Townsend on Joe Madureira throughout. And then the rest of the creative team, Richard Starkings, with Comic Craft on the digital letters, and Steve Buccellato on the colours. Yeah, so there's Steve Buccellato's signature there. So I reckon, yeah, that's his colouring on the triple gatefold cover as well. So let's get into this. It begins in the past in Seattle, a house of refuge in a neighbourhood gone wrong around it. Not tonight, but a night long ago. So we've got young Gambit here in a suit, and he's in a church and he's thinking to himself about his current situation in life, and he is making a decision on the basis of what card emerges from the pack that he's shuffling. So his wife is dead, Belladonna, before her time, and he has racked up a lot of enemies from his life of crime. On the other hand, I'm the best thief in the whole world, he thinks to himself. I got a power to charge things that makes sure I'm going to stay the best. And this payment means I ain't never going to again take a job that'll eat away at me. So that'll prove to be ironic. Single card tells it. I'm going to win or lose when the last card's turned. And of course, it's the Ace of Spades. Ace of Spades, says someone off panel. Isn't that the card of death? So this is a nice little sequence here where Gambit charges the card, hits it off the ground, and it bounces up towards the balcony, but there's nobody there. Instead, the figure is down on the floor with him as well, which takes Gambit by surprise. And it is Mr. Sinister. You do superior work, Mr. LeBeau. Very superior work. You've impressed me, and I'm not easy to impress. So what does Gambit say in response? He says, you paid me to round up some bad folk. I done what I was paid to do. Don't need your compliments now. Just need our debt settled. No. And so Sinister tosses him whatever this canister is and contains. A most peculiar fee to request, but a reasonable one. For me, at least. I trust for you as well. Trust all you want, says Gambit as he catches it. But what is this? I like the sequence here, the 5-panel sequence of the canister being thrown to Gambit. Since it's Mr. Sinister, it's got to be DNA of some sort, right? It's got to be some kind of genetic type specimen, something like that. Gambit holds it in his hand. He continues and says, about those men I gathered, Scalp Hunter and the others, what makes them worth this much? To a man like you. You could have got him yourself. So I do like Seagle just leaving this panel silent. We see that malicious, gleeful smile on Sinister's face. No answer. And Gambit replies, never mind, some things better left unknown, I guess. Another thing, no more jobs for me. This was the last. Don't call, don't write. I believe in the cards. I'm out of this game here and now. And what does Sinister say? Have faith, Mr. LeBeau, that you will be out when you hear from me that you're out, and that will only be after one more job. My new associates require your specific talent for insinuating yourself into places you don't belong. So a thief's skills. And Gambit pulls off his shades. Believe this, Essex, as of today, you can't afford me no more. Every man has a price to charge, LeBeau. Actually, no, he doesn't pull them off, he puts them on. Every man has a price to charge, LeBeau. I think I know yours. Every man has a price to charge and a price to pay, thinks Gambit in the present in Antarctica. Now, on this page, I want to talk about how Chris Claremont's original plan for Gambit and Sinister, you can see the visual similarity between the pair in respect of their glowing red eyes. The original plan was that these two characters were manifestations of a mutant boy who was I'll say the word inmate of the orphanage in Nebraska, where Scott Summers was an orphan before he was found there by Professor X and recruited to be the first X-Man. and that these two were manifestations wrought by this mutant who had the appearance of a young boy, maybe 10 or 11 years old, but who was actually much older, who was decades older, and who had the ability to create out of himself these two facets of himself. One, a kind of stereotypical Silver Age looking type villain, and the other like a cool kind of 90s, early 90s anti-hero type. And that Gambit was indeed supposed to be a traitor of the X-Men, but he would, in classic Claremontian fashion, redeem himself ultimately, and Sinister would be defeated and the secret of the mutant boy who was both their origins be revealed. But none of that happened, and the way it's ended up is that Gambit worked for Mr. Sinister on a job connected with the Morlock massacre. So I don't know. You tell me which you prefer, Claremont's vision or the way that things panned out. So here we are in Antarctica. The Beast has whipped together a skimmer from the remains of their Shi'ar spaceship, and Gambit there is dealing with his memories. Can't stand no more of these memories coming back on me. It's like the gas I used to get from Aunt Charity's jambalaya. Felt fine going in. Felt like heck coming back up. I like that little detail there in his thought balloon. There's something funny about that in the midst of all this dark seriousness. And speaking of darkness, the colours in this issue, some of them are quite grimy and dark. And again, this is the usual problem from the 90s digital colouring, where this would have all looked grand on a computer screen, but it doesn't print well on paper, so you can barely see Grovel there. You can barely see the details of Joe Madureira's black line art. So Spat here is wondering why Gambit isn't talking, and she says, what is it that turns a devil into an angel, or she asks, and Gambit replies, I care about something now, no more fighting. More than that I won't say, but if he would say it, what would it sound like? Love? So we have a callback to the previous issue and the night of love, let's put it that way, that Gambit and Rogue spent together when their powers were dampened by Nanny. And Gambit is there saying, I want to say, Rogue, I do. Got a wall up in me, something fierce. She replies, I thought we brought our walls down last night. If it's that you love me, that's okay to say. I want to hear you say it so much. And then he simply gives her a card, or rather, she gives him a card, the Queen of Hearts. Carry it and think of me in those times we aren't together, though I hope those are few. Now we'll see how all that pans out at the end of the issue as well. So Spat grabs the card from him, casts it into the snow, and then something goes wrong. So Grovel here says that oh wait, sorry, this isn't the Beast. We'll see him shortly, but their transport is doesn't respond anymore to the controls. Something bumping up from underground, pulling us down into it. So down into a chasm they go, and the card, the Queen of Hearts there, falls into the snow. And of course we know it's going to be picked up later by somebody. So let's get past these advertisements, continue with the story. Nearby, here is the Beast, and he's whipping together a skimmer from the remains of Nanny and also from the remains of the Shi'ar spaceship. So that is going on here. And then he's wondering about Joseph. After all, this was your sanctuary when you were Magneto. Beast thinks to himself, the amnesia you suffer from has been a blessing for the world because it is safe from a madman, and for you because you've been given the chance to change your life unencumbered by your past sins. So there's a kind of like counterpoint going on in respect of Gambit, who's going to have to face up to his past sins, and then Joseph, who seems to evade facing up to his past sins by virtue of his amnesia. So that thematic, that goes back to Lobdell. Lobdell was playing around with that and having both be love interests for Rogue, but Rogue has made a decision that it's Gambit she loves, and so she wants to go after and rescue Gambit, even though he handed himself over willingly to Grovel and Spat. But she says here, looking very determined, that's a nice drawing of Rogue by Madureira, if he's too stupid to know he needs rescuing, that's too bad. Now the scene shifts to Manhattan. We've got the Twin Towers there, and this is picking up from the previous issue as well. So Angel is facing off against maggots, Eenie and Meanie, And meanwhile, Psylocke is more interested in Maggot himself, who's unconscious on the ground. There's something dark in him, something missing. Part of this man is missing, she says. I feel compelled to discover what it is within him that attracts me so. So Angel flies after her into the shadows, and the maggots go too, because this is a new power of Psylocke's after being healed by the Crimson Dawn. And now, speaking of shadows, here we have Gambit waking up in the dark, and someone's talking to him. You're being held in place of confinement until such time as your trial's commencement. And then traitors brought to this place need not bark orders. You are the coward of all mutant kind, and I promise you a fate fitting your crimes. So then he's electrocuted here and knocked cold, and the voice says, you are guilty and will be found guilty in due time, but not quite yet. There are still other players yet to arrive. And speaking of whom, here we have them. Like this craft that this skimmer, as he calls it, that Beast has whipped together, looks a lot like something you get from Star Wars, doesn't it? I think that's fairly deliberate on Madureira's part. And here we have Rogue, who's out on one of the elements of the craft, and she's there thinking about Gambit. I feel like I might cry at the drop of a hat over what I'm remembering, and I don't need no one asking embarrassing questions of me right now. Better to look strong out here than weak in there. And then she spies something in the distance. Now this is very good from Steven Seagle, to give him credit. Look at this for a callback to the past. The heightened seventh sense I siphoned off of Ms. Marvel, ain't noticed it in years, and now it's singing like a fiddle string, even though there ain't nothing here. So that's intriguing. You know, who would have remembered that that was one of Ms. Marvel's powers? Anyway, it's working for Rogue in this moment. But then something, it's like holding the skimmer together is a bit of a problem here. And also this, like if I'm praising Seagal for this, I don't know about this piece of dialogue where Trish Tilby refers to Beast as lover, whereas Lobdell was exploring how, you know, like she's thinking about whether she should be involved with Beast, but maybe in this moment of crisis, just her true feelings come out. Meanwhile, there's a problem with Joseph. So he's feeling a massive headache. What's up with him? And Beast makes a joke, Carsick. Rogue says, no time for jokes, Beast. Something's up. Fine. Let Joseph out and go look around while we let these engines cool down. So you can see the engines were overheating there. So now they're out on the ice, and Joseph falls to his knees in pain. But he says, he's here. So Rogue flies over. Joseph, who's here? What's the matter? And Beast says, pray he's not unconscious, Rogue. He's all that stands between us and freezing to death out here. And Joseph has just fallen at the point where the Queen of Hearts card was thrown onto the ice by Spat. And Rogue realizes he is here. I don't know how Joseph knew it, but he's right. But is Joseph talking about Gambit, or is he talking about somebody else? We'll see by the end of the issue. So Rogue says, Remy's here. I gave him this card yesterday, but here, he's here, but where? So then the skimmer explodes. Everybody was out of it just in the nick of time. No, he is here. He's not talking about Gambit, right? So this citadel emerges from the ice. It looks pretty cool. Nice design by Madureira. My stars and garters, Joe. What is that and how'd you raise it? So Joseph doesn't know. What should we do? Rogue's the leader. She says, we're X-Men. We charge right on into the unknown and save our own. Let's get going. Okay, so there's some paciness to the storytelling here. This is a nice page as well. This would have been fun for Madureira to draw at that moment, many miles to the west. So here we have Professor X. He's still a prisoner. Operation Zero Tolerance is closed down, but he's still in that maximum security facility. A prisoner number 13. And he's there remembering the past iterations of the X-Men. So we've got the original team in the original Kirby stretchy costumes. We've got the all new, all different X-Men there as well. We've got the current team. So must have been fun for Madureira drawing them all in their different costumes as well. Now, difficult as well. But the professor, he's dreaming. They're all talking about he's here again. You've got to help us, sir. He's here again, Professor, says Cyclops again. I'll tell you why. Why is he here again? And who is he? Well, you know, if you're a long-time reader of the X-Men, you'll know who he is. And the Professor wakes up. Is the dream still alive within him, or does he understand a little too late that these emotions are locked away in a vault, a prison with no obvious key? So when's Professor X going to get out of that prison? Now we have some pages drawn by Andy Smith, and I think inked by Vince Russell, if I had to guess. So Joseph is leading them down, or he's walking with them down into the citadel. He says to Beast, "I've no knowledge of this place save that it was here." So down they go, and they find this sculpture, and it's a sculpture of blind justice. And Beast makes a comment. He says, "I thought this citadel might be some forgotten mystery of the Savage Land, but she's a far more northern concept." Now that's a little clue as regards the villain of this issue. So Rogue here says, "Let's split up and look around if there's any trouble." And I like this little piece from Trish where she says, "There's always trouble where you're all involved." So off they go. Joseph is feeling ill, but he says he's an X-Man. He'll be fine. And he thinks to himself, if I can manage to keep standing, the more I come to remember myself, my past as the villain Magneto, the less well that self feels. Then he thinks to himself, these corridors are familiar. Did I build this place, live here? The Beast certainly thinks so. My memories feel closer to me, as if hovering over, just beyond my body. I wonder why. So why indeed, Joseph? Then elsewhere within the Citadel, so this is where Psylocke emerges. She emerges from the shadow there in a library, and she's looking at a book, and she swipes rust off the book, so looks as if the books are basically engraved metal. But look at the title of the book here, the Code of Hammurabi. So that's one of the earliest law codes. It goes back to the Bronze Age and the Middle East, and I'm trying to remember what century Hammurabi was, but we're talking about something like the 7th, this is my guess, something like the 7th century BC. And it's a law code that is more or less eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth, almost biblical, or analogous to the Bible's code of an eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. It's all about retributive justice and retributive justice. So that's the code. And that gives a clue to the kind of justice that is going to operate in this citadel. But Psylocke here sees on her fingers, tests on her fingers, that there's rust. So that's interesting. And another clue to the ultimate villain here. And then Angel arrives, emerges, and this is funny. Like he's calling out for Betsy. And then he sees this gallows, and it's like a high-tech gallows, but with the noose just hanging there, and then the drop in the center. So what's all this about? And as Warren's doubts grow, they threaten to tighten around his love like a noose. Okay, that's a bit overwritten, a bit on the nose. Now this is a page where the digital coloring is terrible. So you can see here, you can barely see what's going on here in the art. So dark are the digital colors. Again, this probably looked okay on computer screen in 1997, but it printed badly on the page. So Maggot emerges also from one of the shadows, and Joseph happens upon him. And Maggot knows him as a friend. I'll always call you my friend after what you did for me. But he calls him Magneto. And Joseph says, I'm no longer called by that name now, I'm only Joseph. And then he's tasered or something. Trust me, the voice off panel says to Maggot, trust me through what will come next, Maggot. You've never lied to me, says Maggot, and I never shall. Cooperate, and you will be free. So Joseph is dragged away by the hair. And then above, we've got more tablets about the law, the 10 Commandments in this case. Again, the colours are very dark on this page. Trish is there talking to the Beast. She's grabbed by these robotic tentacles. The Beast 2 is taken out. And then Psylocke is going around the Citadel. She sees these statues. It looks like Thunderbird and blink. Maggot must be here somewhere, or Archangel at the very least. I sensed him in the shadow plane as we travelled. Who? Statues. But monuments to whom? She's asking herself. To those who deserve them, the fallen. So she's zapped. She recognises the zapper. You, it can't be. They always say that. So who's zapped her? Farther below, we've got Angel. That's a pretty good anchor image by Andy Smith. And the way that the feathers of his wings are rendered is pretty good as well. He gets zapped too. And we've got a gauntleted hand pointing to Angel. Remand him to the make-ready chamber. The trial is almost upon us. So these robot minions go do that. Let's get past. We're in the middle of the comic now. So Rogue finds where Gambit is being, the cell where he's being held. Now we're back to Joe Madureira's pencils. And on this page in particular, the black line art is pretty grainy. So whatever, it must have been printed, the comic must have been printed from digital files. And on a lot of the pages, the resolution is not correct. It's low resolution, it's grainy. If you've got a copy of this comic, you can see what I mean when you look at the black line art, and it kind of breaks up a bit. Not good. My hope would be, if and when this is reprinted, that that'll be corrected, that we'll get sharper black line art. So she finds him. He's there. He's freed himself from those manacles. And of course, the thing about it is that he's kind of staying there because he's in despair. He wants to be judged, and he wants to be left he's there because he wants to be judged. He feels guilty. It's his conscience is pricking him. But Rogue is there protesting that, she wants to rescue him. He tells her, get out, just get out, girl. I don't love you now or never go. He's lying, of course. What will happen here must happen. I'm ready to face that alone. So she protests and she says, the hell you will. I don't believe a word you just said. Get up. I just found you, Remy, and I ain't about to lose you, she says. Whatever's eating at you, we'll work through it together, far, far away from here. Now remember that. So she's making him, in effect, a promise here. In effect. And will she keep it? Remember this. But he says he's not listening. Sorry, Cher. Sounds pretty, but it just can't be. I deserve this. I chose to come here. And she protests, don't you understand? I love you unconditionally. Remember that. Remember that as well for the ending of this issue. Love ain't always enough, he says. She protests that it is. He grabs her and says, stop it, girl. This is what will be. I built a house of cards and it's come down on me. Guess you always knew it would. I have to go through this. So she's there and she's weeping. Why can't she be happy? And so on and so forth. Let's continue past this teen drama. And then we have the revelation of who it is that is going to be the judge. And it is Eric the Red. So that's a blast from the X-Men's past. The moment is at hand, he declares, in Silver Age villain fashion. All my months of preparation and planning shall now pay off. The mutant Gambit no longer deserves the life he now leads. The day of retribution is upon him. So hence Hammurabi's code, hence the Beast saying, Lady Justice, blindfolded, a northern concept of justice. There's Grovel and Spat as well. So they were working for Eric the Red to pick up Gambit and bring him to him. And Eric the Red zaps Rogue. And so we're going to see how all this pans out. Meanwhile, what's become of the core team of the X-Men? Well, in Pennsylvania, this is an interesting little comment here from Steven Seagle. Pennsylvania, the peaceful skies above this sometimes conservative eastern state are parted by a craft borrowed from the tattered remnants of a government program gone mad, Operation Zero Tolerance. We don't need any of the rest. So there is the craft, there is Phoenix, and Scott has some a nanobomb inside him, and Phoenix is using her telekinesis to keep it from going off. And Cannonball there is feeling like, how shall I put it, like a spare wheel. and not part of the X-Men. I got no business listening in on their private stuff. Maybe I should wait in the cockpit. He thinks to himself, the dialogue between Wolverine and Storm. Their family, I'm just some latecomer. Feel like no matter how much I ever go through with the X-Men, I can never really be one of them. You know what you should do, Sam? Is go back to X-Force. Go back there. And he does. So here we have, let me see, I think this is Andy Smith back on the art. He's definitely on this page. Yeah, it is him. So Andy Smith back here. Joe Madureira will come back for the last pages of the issue, so don't worry about that. So now we get a double page spread in the Antarctic citadel, and it's Eric the Red. He's got his servant droid there called Ferris, which of course has to do with iron, which is a clue as regards the identity of Eric the Red. And then this is the setup here. So we've got Gambit, and his head is under the guillotine blade, ready to be beheaded. He says this ain't necessary. Then we've got the X-Men plus Trish Tilby, and they're going to be the jury, a selection of your peers: Beast, Maggot, Rogue, Psylocke, and a human woman. He doesn't even know her name. And Angel is going to be, or Archangel is going to be, the defender. So Eric the Red says, "You're the perfect man for this task, Archangel." So Angel acquiesces. Since I'm shackled, I've got no choice. But even if I do go along, who's going to judge this trial? So Eric the Red says, with a big smile on his face, "We all judge each other in our own ways." And I guess that will turn out to be the case. We'll get to that. So these pages by Andy Smith as well. I wonder, I have a feeling that these pages, this page in particular, could well be inked by Dan Panosian. So Eric the Red here asks for lights to go up. Behind me are the effigies of the souls swept away in an unforgivable holocaust. Many had names lost in the bloody currents of their massacre, but the two behind me were known. Prism and Scaleface were their names before their brutal deaths. Deaths all but enacted by Remy LeBeau. Gambit, you stand accused of the crime of mass murder of the Morlocks. So here we go. So this has Angel surprised. Hold on a minute, just wait a minute. Who in blazes are you? And so the reader would be asking the same. And the long-time reader would know this as well, that Angel says, Eric the Red isn't real. He's always a cover for someone else. Cyclops, the first time as I recall, and that's the case. Is this your idea of some kind of joke, Scott? Or did you finally snap and go not so evil like Professor X? You always did follow his lead. I like that little bit of, how will I put it, like animus there in Angel's accusation. That there's a little bit of rivalry among the original X-Men, and in particular between Warren and Scott, because whatever else Gambit may be, we've all had our doubts about him in the past. He's an X-Man first, and one doesn't let another fall. So we'll see how that turns out. Eric the Red replies, "Oh, and when has ever that mattered? What have you X-Men really done for your own kind? You shelter one or two within your precious school and leave hundreds of others to fend for themselves. And how do you choose those you will help? Take the attractive and powerful, leaving the deformed and destitute Morlocks to live beneath the streets of your city? Allowing them to ingest the refuse of humanity for decades, then standing idly by while they're exterminated." So Gambit is asking, who's on trial here, them or me? Eric says, "Point well taken, it's most definitely you, boy." And Gambit replies, "Look, there's too much dialogue here. Steven Seagle is overriding this issue. Too much dialogue. The art is being crowded out. It's a kind of a beginner's mistake of a writer, especially when they're working over someone else's plot, to overdo the scripting. But in any case, Eric says, and yet you still don't act like a man. A man will confess his crimes and accept his punishment. And Gambit retorts, "I confess that I've done some things I'm ashamed of, but these ain't the people what need to hear my apology." "No," exclaims Eric, "those people are dead at your hands, therefore our ears and ours alone will have to serve as witness for your atrocities." So now the X-Men are putting together who's not with them. Joseph. So Rogue addresses Eric as Joseph, and the reader will be wondering, is it Joseph? Ferris show their pathetic accomplice into our court. So it's not. So here's Joseph. This is a pretty good drawing as well, and effective by Andy Smith, especially the detail of Joseph's tongue sticking out of his mouth. He's unconscious, and the drool or blood falling on the ground. Well, he's half unconscious, and he's got something he's trying to say. He's about to say. He's going to reveal something about Eric the Red, but Eric cuts in and says he has already been judged and found so unworthy as to not even be allowed to waste the time of this esteemed court. But enough speculation. Will you confess to these people the crime you've committed? He holds up Gambit's head there. The blackest moment in your long line of blasphemous actions. So now we're back to Madureira, and then we have Madureira art to the end of this issue. So Exhibit A, Exhibit 2 coming up. So Gambit admits he worked for Mr. Sinister. Had a heart of ice back then, he says. Belladonna was dead, didn't care if I lived or died. Figured I'd never love again, so I cast my fate with whoever come my way. Turned out to be someone sinister. Wanted me to assemble some mercs to break into an impenetrable community. He had something I needed badly, so I agreed. What is this? What's in there? They were big, ugly, and mean. Did what I was paid to do. That's Sabretooth's hand there. Arm. You worked for Mr. Sinister and you didn't tell us. Now this is, like, what comes next stretches credulity a little bit. Especially from Rogue. What? You were in bed with one of our greatest enemies? Well, you were a member of the Brotherhood of Evil Mutants under your foster mother, Mystique, Rogue. Remember that? For how long, Remy? For how long? She asks. Tain't like that, Rogue, he responds. It was something I'd done and wasn't none too proud of. But once I joined you X-Men, I put all that behind me, just like you did once, Cher, remember? So Gambit remembers, like other readers do. And Eric the Red isn't interested. You cannot set aside your past. A man's character is the sum of his actions. Now, Angel has something to say. Exactly. And this man has proved himself time and time over. I don't like what I'm hearing, but the fact is, men can change what they are. They can escape the darkness in their souls. I reclaimed mine from Apocalypse. Joseph is turning his own life around in Gambit. But Eric the Red interrupts. Fool, Gambit is directly responsible for the darkness that befell you. So here comes a revelation. Exhibit 2. You were quick to defend a man who's permanently scarred you, Archangel. Tell him, Gambit, says Eric. Explain who it was that you so efficiently assembled that night. Tell them all how much evil you and you alone congregated in the name of greed. So he says, had nothing to do with greed, blasted. I got nothing more to say. So what's in the canister? Psylocke knows what it is. So she testifies, I know the names of some of those assembled: Arclight, Scrambler, Scalp Hunter, Vertigo, Harpoon, Riptide, and Sabretooth. Evil beings with one intention: to become marauders of the underground and destroy any Morlocks they found there, all because that madman, Sinister, deemed their existence scientifically useless. These memories have been locked away in my mind for months since I mind-linked with Remy. So that's back to issue 330. Not saying it, 324 and 330. Not saying it ain't true, he says, but I am saying a man can change. I don't want anyone to forget what I done, just forgive. I suspected Psylocke knew this secret, could have killed her long ago and silenced the secret forever, but I didn't. I ain't no villain. So that's 330 that's being referenced there. But look at this. Now this is a bit much. You know, Warren, look, he's almost hulking out there. You created the marauders, he exclaims. You cost me my wings. You did that to me. And then you stood by my side, pretended to be my friend. I never said a damn word about any of it. I should drop that blade on your neck myself, you traitor. Now, I don't know that there's been very much action shared by Angel or Archangel and Gambit. They haven't really been together in any X-Men stories. I mean, you know, Archangel was on the gold team and Gambit over on the blue team. So there hasn't been much interaction between them. So what's all this about being friends? Any case, he continues here, and he's also angry at Psylocke. And you knew about it all this time and you never told me? She responds, I didn't know. I mean, I did, but it only came back to me, Warren, after all what I've been through. So he's unhappy, his shoulders slumped. And you, Gambit, you can defend yourself. I'd like to see you try. So Eric here, delighted that the X-Men are at each other's throats. There is no defense, he says. Of course, this is only the tip of the proverbial iceberg. More of a falling glacier, to be exact. But as the defendant has shown a distinct lack of cooperation in these matters, the prosecution will call a special witness. So who is that? It is Rogue. Now look at this. Look at the gesture of his gauntlet and see how the manacles are shaking and how she's pulled over to the guillotine. And Eric says, don't struggle, Rogue. You know you want this. Kiss him. Steal all his secrets once and for all and share them with the court. And she's there pleading, don't make me do this. I don't want to do this. And Gambit says to her, feel no responsibility, Cher. It ain't your doing. Just please find a way to forgive me for what you're about to see. So she kisses him. She's forced to do it. And then Exhibit 3. Oh no. So here she sees, from Gambit's point of view, that he showed the Marauders the way into the Morlocks' tunnels. He's scared because every step he takes, he knows something's bad's going to happen. He watches it start. Blood, so much blood. He's horrified. He tries to stop them, but no, the one Sabretooth nearly kills him. So, you know, all of that threatening that Sabretooth did of Gambit over the previous couple of years in terms of knowing his secret from that night and teasing that he'd reveal it. This is what it was all about. He didn't know, so he's talking about himself. Though it might be something illegal, thought it might be something illegal, didn't know it would be something so awful. Changed me that night, did. Changed me hard. Sickened myself so much I almost died there too. Sometimes wish I had. Couldn't stop the ones I'd gathered, so I helped whoever I could to get out. Managed to snatch one little girl out of harm's way. Don't know who she was. Bones sticking every which way out of her face. That's Marrow. That's young Marrow. But that was all I could do. And Eric's not impressed. Save one in the face of the loss of how many others? Save one from the genocide you set in motion? Are we to applaud you for this? Reward you for being the kindest of war criminals? Rather than try you and then Sabretooth and then... But Rogue has something to say. How dare you? She exclaims. You can see here that we're fitting in a lot of story as we come to the end of this issue. Also, there's a lot of mitigation of Gambit's responsibility for the Morlock massacre here, in terms of trying to stop it, being unable because he's attacked by Sabretooth, saving Marrow as well. So this is all kind of gaining sympathy from the reader, but not from the X-Men. How dare... But Rogue's initial anger is at Eric the Red. How dare you violate me like that? You mentally raped me, she exclaims. Your justice left me pregnant with a new personality, and the exact one I wanted to get to know like a real normal woman. So Gambit's. So she's got Gambit's powers there temporarily. She sends that Queen of Hearts card flying at Eric the Red, but he's imperturbed. I can easily avoid your ill-aimed shot, he says. We can not so easily turn our heads from the barbarity of our fellows. But the card strikes the manacles on Beast's hand, so he's free. The maggots here start eating away at the chains that are holding Angel. So now they're free. And Gambit sees the Queen of Hearts card that Rogue kept it, or found it, and used it, tried to use it against Eric the Red. So she's socking him one. No jury in the world would find me guilty for doing it to you, for making him suffer, she says. Yeah, you can see all the panels here as Madureira is trying to finish out the plot. Place your anger where it belongs, says Eric, in the heart of the man you loved. Let you and your teammates judge him now and forevermore. So they're being deliberately freed because Eric hopes that the X-Men will basically attack Gambit and maybe kill him. But the walls of the citadel start tumbling down. So B says, we got to evacuate. Rogue says she's going to help Gambit. Gambit says, no, save yourself. Let the walls come down on me, Cher, says Gambit, so he's still feeling guilty. I won't just leave you in here to die, she says, and self-pity really doesn't suit you, Gambit. Psylocke tells her to hurry up, so she grabs Gambit. He says, Rogue, thanks for believing in me. I promise what I was ain't what I am now. But then she lets go of his hand. Who said I believe you, Remy? I just said I wouldn't let you die in there. Out here, it's up to you whether you live or die. I don't care anymore. Now that doesn't follow from anything that was said earlier about her love being unconditional, that they'd work through whatever his dark secret was, etc., etc. I mean, he told the story there of how he tried to stop. And she saw it. He tried to stop the massacre once it started, and he rescued a Morlock girl. And it's still not good enough for her. So I just find the characterization here just not working for me. Not working for me. It seems more plot-driven than anything else, or kind of to ramp up very simplistic melodrama. We see Madureira here putting the two characters in silhouette. Interesting borderless panel as well, varying the layout. I think that's interesting. He's there begging with her. I don't care if you leave me here, Cher, but you have to understand. She says, you think I can understand you? You think wrong. So he replies, fine then, I've earned your hatred, but at least get me somewhere. That'll give me a chance to get back home. Home, she says. She's holding that Queen of Hearts card burned from earlier. You ain't got no home. Not with me, not with the X-Men. Fend for yourself. You seem to have done a good job of that in the past. And now finally he says it, but I love you. She throws the card at him in the snow. You're honest with the people you love, Gambit, otherwise it's a gamble. And then we're back to the opening lines of the issue. What is it that pulls a man in many directions all at once, but which at the same time also holds a man together? And now the answer, it is his soul. So Gambit, does he have a soul? Yes, he has a soul. And then Eric the Red, what about him? This should have been a page turn, but however. And whether good or evil or a combination of both, a man cannot escape the urgings of his soul. Okay. So now Ferris is there taking off his master's armor and asking, why was this guise necessary at all? And the figure in silhouette says, because I've learned that victory is best measured over time. One minor win can trigger greater victories in the future, and it is careful planning I'm interested in now. The gradual erosion of the forces set against me, and a deliberate construction of the society I desire. That is how a world is built, one stone at a time, each put in its proper place at the proper moment. We recognize this helmet and silhouette. Ferris asks, shall I dispose of the Eric the Red garments? Not just yet. I may still have need of them. There is a certain liberation to be found in moving amongst your enemies completely unknown. I may walk this path once more before all is said and done. True, I've never been one to hide behind masks, but then again, Magneto is no longer the man he once was. So that's a really cool image of Magneto by Madureira. It's a pity that we didn't get to see him continue on the X-Books drawing this version of Magneto in his original costume, looking really grand and imposing there. Good stuff, but also bad stuff at the level of plot. Bringing Magneto back once again in the guise of supervillain. It's tedious, it's tiresome, it's exhausted for long-time readers. We've seen it all before. Do we want to see it again? But on the other hand, for newer readers, this is new. This could be exciting. I like the little detail here. Some Madureira signing off. Bye everyone. See you soon. So that's over at Image. Tim Townsend inking this final page as well. To be continued, one stone at a time. But I guess for some people, this could have been a jumping off point. Yeah. And there's one page of letters, but most of it is taking up with a statement of ownership. Interesting figure there. The average print run, 471,292 issues. So the sales still pretty decent on Uncanny X-Men, Marvel's best-selling title in the period. And there you go. So that is the 350th issue spectacular, one of the last of the enhanced covers. I think a pretty good one. Gambit's secret revealed. A bit of a a damp squib, I would say. And then, of course, the return of Magneto. A cool image by Joe Madureira and Tim Townsend, and with the colours by Steve Buccellato. But come on, supervillain Magneto back once again. As I said, this could be a jumping off point for a lot of readers. But if this was an issue that you picked up back in the day in late 1997 and you loved it then and you still love it now, let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed my review and commentary, please like and share the video. It really does help the channel. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.